Hi guys, welcome to the Observational Astrologer. So I finally got around to analyzing Blake Lively's chart and analyzing her current dasha system to see why she's facing all this controversy around Justin Baldoni and all the lawsuits that have been filed. So let me share screens. Let's look at her chart first on a static basis to see the promise that a chart holds. And then we look at it on a dynamic basis, studying the dashas that she's going through and the particular time period that is showing the legal battles and legal hassles that she's facing. So just one moment. Okay, so what you see on the screen now is Blake Lively's Vedic birth chart. This is her Vedic birth chart, and on the right over here, you can see her Navamsa chart. But let's look at the Vedic birth chart first. So we see that Blake Lively was born on the 25th of August, 1987, at 5:07 a.m. in Tarzana, California, in the United States. That makes her a Cancer Lagna, rising at 21 degrees and 40 minutes of the nakshatra of Ashlesha. Now, let's talk a little bit about Ashlesha before we move on. Ascendant nakshatras hold the key to understanding our core behavioral traits and personality traits, if I may say so. Um, Now, Ashlesha Nakshatra is ruled by Mercury. And there's a peculiar thing about Mercury Nakshatras is that they all represent transformation and change. Now, Mercury itself is a karaka of transformation because it represents Sandhi. So if you think about very sort of early morning time or time in the evening just before sunset, twilight, it's a time when one something is transforming into something else. When at twilight, it's the afternoon that's transforming into night. And if you were to say suddenly be woken up or placed somewhere where a sunset is taking place without sort of visually seeing the sun going down, you might be mistaken. You might wonder, is it sunrise or is it sunset? I'm not sure. So it shows that duality, transformative side of Mercury. Um, and therefore, all Mercury ruled nakshatras will show a level of transformation in a person's life. Now, Ashlesha is a nakshatra that has the Nagas as its ruling deity. So, Nagas are divine serpents. They are sort of half human, half serpents, holding the Kundalini Shakti and a lot of sort of tantric and divine knowledge within them. It's a very powerful nakshatra that you don't see very often as the Lagna nakshatra. I mean, of course, you'll see people born under Ashlesha, but very often Ashlesha nakshatra prominently placed in a person's chart, whether it's their Lagna, Lagnesh, the Shubhapati, the Atmakaraka, shows some kind of previous life blessing coming into this life. Now, Ashlesha, I would say, is a very misunderstood nakshatra, mostly because of the Puranic story that's linked to it. So, in the Puranic story, one of sage Kashyapa's wives, called Kadru, who was part of the Asura clan, um, she tried to trick Vinata, one of her sisters, into believing I think there was some trickery involving the tail of a horse. She and her sons tricked Vinata into um, into guessing the color of the horse's tail, and they said if you guess it correctly, then they they would give them something. And what they did was they covered the horse's the tail with. She made her sons, the serpents, coil around the horse's tail to make it appear black, even though the tail was white, but ultimately the trickery is caught, and therefore the purpose of telling the story is that Ashlesha Nakshatra people often face a humiliating event in their lives, and very often it's of their own making. It's linked to a form of trickery and deceit which is very intrinsic to their being. Now, I'm not at all saying that people with prominent Ashlesha Nakshatra um, can be very tricky and manipulative in nature and will always be, good or bad. Absolutely not. But uh, having the ability to manipulate a situation, to turn it positively in their favor is very much a quality of Ashlesha Nakshatra. Now, this can be used in a positive way, it can be used in a negative way. So it's not at all a judgment on Ashlesha itself. Ashlesha also shows a hypnotic ability, particularly of the eyes, the serpent eyes. And Blake Lively is she's a very attractive actress, and you can argue that she has these very, very hypnotic eyes, which she uses very well in her acting. Next, we look at the Lagna Lord and the Nakshatra Lord to see where they're going. Because placement of the Lagna Lord particularly shows the path of life, where the path of life will be focused at. So we see the Lagna Lord Moon and the Nakshatra Lord Mercury are both conjunct in the second house of Leo, and they're conjunct Mars, Sun, and Venus. Almost all of them sitting in the nakshatra of Magha, except Moon, which is sitting in Purva Falguni. Now, what does Lagna Lord going into the second house mean? This shows me that her interest in life, her focus in life is all going into the second house, which is her speech. And it's in the sign of Leo, so it's dynamic speech, it's her lineage, it's wealth, it's earned wealth. Second house is earned wealth. It's values, and it's also food. It's also your family. And we know a few things about Blake Lively. She has, I think, she has four children. She has a big family. She is a self-made woman. She's an actress who's earned a lot of money and respect for herself, and she's doing very well. We see that this Moon Mercury conjunction, along with the other planets, is made very, very strong with the presence of the Sun, because the Sun rules the second house, and the Sun is sitting in the second house. So it sort of uplifts and gives a positive impact to all the planets that are conjunct sitting together in the second house. We also see that Mars, which is the Yoga Karaka planet for a Cancer Lagna, ruling the 10th house of career and karma and the 5th house of progeny, investments, Purva Punya, so, sitting in the second house. Now, this is a clear-cut Singhasan yoga. Singhasan literally means a throne. Interesting, like it's all happening in the nakshatra of Magha, which represents a throne. But this is a very, very positive, auspicious yoga that says that in her career, after the birth of her children, 5th house, she will be placed in a position of power. Actually, even before her children, because it's second house of lineage, it shows that she was either born with a silver spoon in her mouth, or the fact that she will inherit resources or do the same work as her parents, or inherit their business, so to speak. Now, I believe that her father was an actor, possibly not as famous as she and as successful as she is, but definitely was an actor, and her mother was an agent for Hollywood. So definitely it has that theme of following in the lineage of her parents, and doing really, really well. Next, we have Venus also sitting in the second house. Now, Venus rules the 11th house, and it also rules the fourth house. Now, this is a clear-cut Dhana Yoga, as was with Mars, because fifth house in the second will also show a Dhana Yoga. But Lord of the 11th sitting in the second, two houses of wealth coming together shows a brilliant Dhana Yoga again for her. Very, very positive. Finally, we have Mercury, which is possibly not that good a planet for Cancer Lagna because it rules the third house of self-effort, and it rules the 12th house of losses or even foreign lands, perhaps. It's also sitting in the second house. So we see a lot of attention is going into the second house. And all of these planets, other than Moon, which we'll talk about in a second, they're all sitting in the nakshatra of Magha, which, as I mentioned previously, represents the throne, its lineage, its a desire for progeny, it's food. Now, Blake Lively, besides being, a famous actress, is also known to be a very good cook. I think she did she have a household magazine or something of that sort that, did really well for a while? It also shows someone who's very interested in fixed assets and real estate. And I'm sure as a successful movie star, she owns a lot of property around Hollywood and other places. Then we have Saturn is sitting quite prominently in her 5th house, in the sign of Scorpio, in the nakshatra of Jeshta. which is also a Mercury ruled nakshatra. Now, Jyeshtha will show a very aggressive personality as Atmakaraka, but also because it's the planet Saturn as Atmakaraka, it shows that she is a very, very hardworking individual. She'll have to work very hard to get anywhere in life with Saturn Atmakaraka. And Jyeshtha being the nakshatra of Indra shows that there will be power battles, power struggles in her life, and she will try to dominate in whatever way, shape, or form in her life. Now, just to mention one thing I missed out with Ashlesha Nakshatra is um, power struggles are a very significant theme of Ashlesha Nakshatra, particularly feeling victimized um, by a particular situation and then the situation going wrong. So you see that mix of Ashlesha Nakshatra with Jyeshtha is giving us a little bit of flavor of of her being dominant, but also being victimized in a certain way. And we can link that back to the "It Ends With Us" controversy that we'll talk about towards the latter end of this video. Just one final point to mention, that Jupiter sitting in Aries in the 10th house rules her ninth house of Bhagya, very, very positive house, as well as sixth house of enemies, and it's sitting in the 10th house. Um, this is another really positive yoga called a Dharma Karma Adhipati Yoga, where the ninth lord is forming a connection with the 10th lord or the 10th house. And effectively, what this means is that a person uses their dharma or their beliefs very, very strongly in their karma or their place of work. So she has along with that Saturn Atmakarika, she has an extremely strong work ethic and will have a very, very strong sense of belief. Her belief system is very strong when it comes to her career and work. And that Jupiter very nicely is giving Graha Drishti to the sign of Leo, which has this conjunction of Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, as well as the fifth house where Saturn is sitting. Now, final point to note before we look a little bit at the dynamic astrology point is that her moon is sitting in the nakshatra of Purva Falguni. Now, Purva Falguni literally translates to one who is reaping the fruits or the phal of Purva, of previous deeds or previous life. So this is a very fortunate nakshatra to be born under. It's ruled by the Vedic deity called Bhaga, who doesn't form a big part of sort of modern Hindu philosophy, but he was a very important Vedic deity. He's the lord of good times, good fortune, inheritance, lust, sex, enjoyment, rest. And it shows again, it's sitting in the second house. It's again pointing to that, the thing of sort of being born into a royal lineage, maybe not literally royalty, but into a good family with a good social standing, where she was given opportunities early in life, and also the fact that she reaped the rewards of previous good deeds early in life. So it can show someone who reaches success quite early in life. Um, we won't go too much into her Rahu Ketu, but just to mention, her Ketu is sitting in the third house in Virgo in Hasta Nakshatra, and we have Rahu sitting in the ninth house in Pisces in Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra. But just to note that Rahu in Pisces, Rahu in Meena is not very strong. This is the Mula Trikona sign of Ketu. So you can argue that Rahu is a little bit out of sorts in a moksha sign. Right. Now I'm going to stop sharing screen for just a moment. And I'm just going to open up the Wikipedia page that tells me a little bit about the It Ends With Us controversy. And I'll literally read out what's been happening. So during the production of the 2024 American romantic film It Ends With Us, which stars her, Blake Lively, and Justin Baldoni, this film has been the subject of controversy because of highly publicized disputes between Blake Lively and Baldoni, which led to lawsuits. So from December 2024 to May 2025, there were multiple legal complaints that were filed by Blake Lively on the grounds of hostile work environment and defamation. And during this time, Lively has received criticisms from social media websites for not addressing themes of domestic violence, emotional abuse. And this is really interesting because if you look at social media sort of prior to this film, and the way she is portrayed in the media in Hollywood, she's one of America's sweethearts. You know, she's shown as this great mother. She has four children. She's a great wife. She has a very successful husband. She's a great homemaker. She's a breadwinner, highly successful, and she has a very she's had a very rosy and positive image thus far. And sort of post this controversy, um, where I think she sued Justin Baldoni for sexual harassment or something or the other, there's been a lot of negativity about her in the press, whether it's social media outlets, it's tabloids, newspapers, YouTubers, etc. People have been saying a lot of nasty things about her in particular. So let me just go back. 20th of December 2024, Lively filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department alleging that Baldoni created a hostile workplace environment through inappropriate comments. And the complaint coincided with the publication of an article in the New York Times that alleged that Baldoni had hired a PR team to damage Lively's public image in response to her complaints. And then by December 31st, Lively filed a federal lawsuit against him, naming sort of all kinds of issues, sexual harassment, workplace safety concerns, etc. So it's the problems started from December 20th, 2024, and I think it's an ongoing lawsuit from what I understand. So let's just pop back to her chart again. Right. Now, if you bear with me one moment, I just want to see what dasha she is going through. So, first off, she's running through Rahu dasha. It's the first thing we notice. Her Vimshotri dasha is Rahu. So, she started Rahu in October of 2021. And she is, in December 2024, she would have been going through Rahu Jupiter. Maybe if we just take it one level deeper. Right. So, she was in Rahu Jupiter Saturn, which has just in March of 2025 moved to Rahu Jupiter Mercury. This is when the lawsuits and problems began. Now let's see. Rahu is sitting in Meena. Rahu is not debilitated in Pisces, I would say, although some astrologers believe Rahu is debilitated in Pisces. But yeah, it is a form of Nietzsche because Pisces is the Mula Trikona of Ketu. It's a moksha sign. It's ruled by Jupiter. Rahu feels a little bit out of sorts in the ocean of Pisces. So Rahu is not very strong. The second thing to note is that Rahu in the ninth house is considered its Maranakaraka sthana. Now, I seem to mention Maranakaraka sthana very often in all of my videos, not by design, but it just so happens that it's coming up very often. But Maranakaraka sthana effectively are certain positions for planets where they feel dead. They're not able to have the positive effects of the planet are not able to manifest. And the reason being for Rahu in the ninth house is that if you think about the Kalpurush Kundli or Aries Lagna chart, the ninth house belongs to Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, which is the planet of Dharma. And Rahu, in a mundane sense, is against Dharma. It's adharmic. So Rahu sitting in the ninth house, which belongs to Jupiter, shows someone who can listen to the wrong advisors, someone who gets the wrong advice or starts to feel like they are the guru before actually without actually having all the knowledge. So some element of that Maranakaraka sthana Rahu is being felt. The second thing to note, this is happening in her Rahu Jupiter Antardasha. Jupiter, besides being ninth lord, and we mentioned the Dharma Karma Adhipati Yoga, which is brilliant, is also the lord of the sixth house of disputes, of enemies, of lawsuits coming forth. And again, I've mentioned this in a previous chart that I did for Meghan Markle, that Jupiter, in spite of loading the ninth house for the sign for the for a Cancer Lagna person, being really really positive, it will always retain a shade, an element of the sixth house, and and therefore the Rahu Jupiter dasha that she's going through is going to show some kind of court cases, facing enemies, and that dharma karma adhipati yoga coming forward, where the positive side is that the film did really well. I believe, I haven't seen it. I'm sure I did really well. She's a successful actress, but that the court cases and problems are coming alive. Um, then we've got, she's entered from March of 2025. She's entered the third sabdasha of Mercury, which I mentioned briefly, lords the third house of self-effort and the 12th house of losses. So that doesn't bode very well for Blake Lively. And through this Jupiter Rahu Dasha, um, yes, she might make films, but definitely facing enemies, facing up to her karma. It's sort of like a karmic reckoning is going to happen during this time period. She then enters Rahu Jupiter Ketu uh, from July of 2025 to August of 2025, which isn't much better. However, once she enters Rahu Jupiter Venus, which is from August of 25, that's when things, I would say, will become a little bit better and things will start to work out. Then if we think from a transit standpoint, let's open the transit chart for her. So this is sort of May 2025. As you can see, so the outer diamond is the transit chart, the Gochara, and the inner chart is her birth chart. So we see Ketu at the moment has moved into her second house. But prior to this, if we just move like a month back, you can see she had a Rahu and Ketu return over that third and ninth house axis. And now what's happened if we move to real time, we've got Ketu that's moved into the second house. Um, of course, transits are only secondary and must be read in conjunction with, they must be read in conjunction with the dasha that she's going through. She's going through a Jupiter dasha, and Jupiter is very well placed in her chart. So I don't see serious trouble for her. But we do notice that transiting Jupiter, which was in her 11th house of gains, has now moved into her 12th house of losses. So Jupiter is not able to give its very positive results to people of Cancer Lagna at the moment. It's not the best time. However, I must say that Jupiter stays in a sign for about 12 months, and then within the next year, Jupiter will move into Cancer, its sign of exaltation. So it's just a matter of about a year when Jupiter comes into Cancer to bring its blessings on Blake Lively. Next, we see Ketu is transiting over her second house. Now, Ketu in the second house, Ketu is Moksha Karaka, and it can have from a material standpoint, a Ketu transit is often not very positive, because unless you can cultivate a Ketu mindset of letting go, a monk-like mindset of letting go and not being attached to materiality, then Ketu will often take away. So at the moment, I would say Ketu in the second house is restricting her finances, which is probably a very natural thing for someone who is going through a lawsuit. It's restricting her finances. Also to mention, Saturn, up until, was it sort of March 29th of this year, was transiting her eighth house. That's That's an Ashtama Shani transit from the Lagna. Ashtama Shani is problems that come out of nowhere, something that you don't forecast or you don't plan for, that just comes out of nowhere and you have to deal with it. So a lawsuit would be, in my opinion, a lawsuit is definitely a Ashtama Shani type of problem, comes out of nowhere that you then have to just deal with. Thankfully, Saturn has moved now. It's moved into her ninth house over that Rahu in Pisces. Not great for her advisors. I would say she's probably not getting the best advice, even though you have transiting Venus there, exalted, it's very positive. It's still conjunct that Saturn and it's over that natal Rahu in the ninth house. So, I mean, transits aside, transits are going to come and go and change. Um, Having that ninth house Rahu is probably the biggest problem for Blake Lively. And what she needs to do is to get good advisors and realize that some of her advisors, legal advisors, people around her will have that Maranakaraka Sthana Rahu um, feel about them, and they may not be giving her the best advice. So this was a really quick video going through Blake Lively's birth chart to see her current transit and the problems that she's going through currently. But as I've mentioned throughout this video, she has a very, very powerful chart. She's a powerful actress doing very, very well, and I wish her the best of luck. Thank you. Thanks for watching.